Okay. Alright, let's do it to it. And away we go. Alright. So now let me see, game 3. We're playing he's playing the Evans Gambit Decline. This is a game from Montreal Chess Club Championship Tournament. I made an unsound sacrifice, but my opponent was he was afraid of me and didn't accept it. The finish is devastating. That's what Marshall says. Marshall's white and black is R short. E4, E5, knight, king, F3, and so there we go. See, bishop B4 or bishop C4, bishop C4, RC5, pawn to queen knight. This is the Evans Gambit. Bishop G5 or bishop G6. Declining the gambit, this is supposed to be better for black than the accepting of it. However, white gets a dangerous attack in both branches of the lines. So, oops, not D. So C. This is so if this stops the knight from coming in. This stops the knight from coming in. So this actually C3 paralyzes 2 pieces and potentially threatens A4, A5, causing a lot of chaos. I support that this was cut that queen B D4, but too slow as there's also castles that he was talking about is stronger. Another good suggestion by a player Yul Vested is also pawn here. Hey, to support attack basically with A5. Or there's also bishop to A3, which is also a good move. So C3 is played. He also played, let me see here, pawn, okay, pawn to D6 was playable. Was played, and then castles, bishop G4. You gotta bear with me. This is the English notation rather than the algebraic, so it just takes me a second to put it into the English position of the on the board. I mean, put it into the algebraic, numbers on the board. Because it says B with a line knight NT5, and so it took me a second to do this. How they categorize it: if you're black, this is actually 1 through 8, and if you're white, this is 1 through 8 on the white side. So if you're black, it's 1 through 8 this way. If you're white, it's 1 through 8 this way. So it's whose perspective. It's supposed to be more accurate, but I found it more confusing. So I like the algebraic notation of the for the chess lines. That's just my favorite. So D4. This is This is a pretty interesting line. Pawn takes. He played a kind of unsound idea of bishop takes. Rather than taking would have actually been better. Black should have played this right here and then played knight to G5, which then he could just go back and you pick up the piece, but then you have to always take in consideration that you can win a pawn back, or even better might actually be knight F6. And now you can actually take at this point. I'm trying to think, what is the unsound? Queen queen takes, bishop takes, and then takes, and he's actually down material. It's all forcing at that point, but he didn't do that, so he actually moved his king. He believed the threat. This is also back in 1894, so 1894 was when it was played. Nowadays, with engines and the Tigers that are the young prodigies coming up, they most definitely would have grabbed that bishop and said to the player, prove it. So if you're going to do a sacrifice, make sure you can prove it to the young prodigies, because they're tigers and they'll hunt you down if you make a mistake in chess. So make sure your moves are good in forcing. Make sure they have a basis for the play too, because you want to be able to not give the tigers any opportunity of inkling of chance. So bishop to here, so he actually won a pawn. And then knight to king 2. Knight actually be knight to f6 is actually a better after pawn takes here, bishop takes knight, and then if queen takes, then you can actually, yeah, you do have a if white takes, you always have an idea of just potentially moving your king, and now this is under fire. You do have this here, and if takes, about equal. Probably takes and then takes. We have to be careful at this point. Black's got to be careful not to get his bishop trapped. So you push, you do this here, and then bishop here, and then the pawn. And finally he goes back. Now he's got this really odd structure. And now he plays knight g5. This is bone crunching right now. Queen to queen 2. Queen to d7, I mean. Knight, knight e6, check. King has to move, of course. Knight takes the king pawn check. King was back. Then bishop e6. Queen to d8. Oops, not e8. Queen d8. Uh-oh, sorry. That was my fault there. Let me see. Oh, I gotcha. Queen to our bishop. Hold on. Boom. Okay, here, there, and then bishop. There we go. Bishop takes pawn. So he grabs a pawn. Knight to rook check. Sets up for a forcing move sequence, and then knight to b6 is mate. That was a forced move. We're probably we'll do one more because that was a pretty short one. This is a longer drawn out one here. This is a Dutch defense. I know we said we would only do one a night, but that went way too fast. This is a Dutch defense, and Marshall is black, and V Sordin is white. He plays d4. Marshall plays f6, f5. Bishop to g5. With the rather optimistic expression that black will fall for this move here if you played. I'll do the move that he played. He played right here. And let me see. Let's see, rook here, here. And he actually played the exclam move. This is an exclam move. White's not going to fall for this move here. This would be silly. Bishop to knight 3. Pawn b5. And then e3. And then if you sillily took here, you get something called a smother. You get a fool's mate. and he didn't fall for the fool's mate. Putting his white puts the finger on the weak point here, but you have to also be on the lookout that this is a little optimistic as well. See if he plays this. He says that this is a sclam. This is actually not a good move for it's actually a blunder. The engine hates F4, but during this time it was considered a strong move with the threat of playing G5, but you have to be you know, on your toes. He played not E. Sorry, he didn't play that. He played E4. Queen or knight F6. Creating a flight square for the king. Thus, basically parrying the threat of that there. At the same time, white is unprepared for his counterattack on the queen side. So, queen. This is really odd. I want to make sure I did this right. Hold on. Oh, pawn b4. Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. Pawn b4 here. This is it right here. C5. No, this is a better move. Then he played e4. Queen to knight 3, which, hey, how you doing? This provides a flight square and attacks the b2. So the queen pawn takes the pawn here. The queen takes the knight pawn, knight to d2, and then the king pawn goes there. Queen h5 check. King queen 1, and then rook to knight 1. Queen to b3. And our queen to f6. Sorry, I'm reading that English notation. I would have, he said this, I would have been even more excited to have played queen to g7, he says, gaining time for his knight to actually come in on on f6. White sacrifices the sacrifice of a piece. Indeed, on move 4 was solely a nuisance, not a value, he said. However, black's position is uncomfortable with his slow development and a king anchored in the center. Yeah, so he's in a world of hurt at this point. He has to be ready for anything that could happen. Knight to or king knight to b3. Pawn. Oh, pawn takes. What is that? Oh, pawn takes the bishop. Yeah. Yikes. He's trying to trap the queen. Queen knight here. And then knight to C, and he's trying to get his knight in here and cause a little chaos. Just gotta make sure I see where I move 11. Okay. The knight's coming out here to take advantage of that pawn on e5. Queen takes pawn. Oh, queen takes rook pawn, sorry. Boom. To keep a pin on the the knight so that the knight could actually jump in here. So queen knight 5, and that is to try to trade this queen off, forcing the exchange of queens, and considered easing his game actually considerably. This eased black's game really good. Queen. Bishop. Queen 2, I think. Sometimes this is hard to actually get down here. Then he went pawn. He's going pawn h5 and trying to, if the exchange is to happen, he'll actually he'll probably take towards the center and have an open rook on there. It would not be good for black to exchange, for after knight takes, the knight would be threatening to go to g6. So if we exchanged, we'd be threatening to actually go into g6 and fork both of these pieces, and the knight really can't come out at this point. Black's knight can't come out. So text was a great virtue of putting black's basically rook, so that when he takes, it puts this rook against the other rook on h1. So pretty interesting to say the least. So castles, rook h6. Wait a second. I think did I make a mistake here? I'm giving a person one more chance. If this person oversteps again, I'll ban him. I gave him 2 retries so that they'll basically maybe straighten up. So knight to rook 3. Let me see here. Try it. So now if this takes, the knight could take back. So king rook to queen. That's the king rook to queen. Wait a second. King rook. The queen d1. So it's rook f d1. And then the king rook goes to g at this point. Now we're threatening a mate on g2. Queen takes, queen is forced. Rook pawn takes. Now there's knights under fire. So knight to d2, or knight f d2. And then king to e6 with a lot of pressure that's relieved now. Black is gradually consolidating his game and rerouting his pawn's position and bringing new pieces into play. That's what black's doing right at this moment. Knight and knight 3. Basically, white's trying, because he sacrificed a piece, he's trying to get something with all of his might. White's trying to get anything, but white's losing right now. White's losing really badly. Knight b2, so this knight's rerouting, and potentially here, maybe letting the rook come over. And rook to king 1. That's to hold on. This see, he's double attacking this pawn here with his knight, so the rook had to come back to guard it. Bishop knight. Now he has 3 pieces attacking it. And now the king pawn goes. Black has at last seized the initiative and is considerably material advantage. Has a considerable material advantage, and it begins to tell, he says. Let's see, right here. Queen knight takes. Queen rook to queen 1. Now This reason he played c3, you always got to ask yourself, why did my opponent play c3? Bishop c2 is the reason. He wants to attack with all of his might. Rook to knight 1, so now the last rook comes to knight. In order to create more open files, he needed to bring his rook there, so rook to b8, so he can play b6, and after trades, pawn trades, and he can get some attack going. Knight to queen 4. He's got to try to see if he can't get maybe a discovery or something with this move. And after pawn takes, bishop takes, and he's going to try to open up black like a tin can, but a little too little, a little too late, as they like to say. Takes, knight takes, bishop takes, rook takes, and then king b2, and no more threat, my friend. It's 5 pawns, and that's the game. Game, set, and match. Guarding against bishop takes the pawn. So, of course, going in exchange up is favorable for black. We're in a piece, whole piece up. A minor piece, not a major, but a minor. So bishop to b5, pawn to b6, pawn takes check, rook takes, pawn a4. We attack the bishop, and then bishop goes to b1. Rook to rook 1, which is attacking the rook on h2. As we have seen, the occasion of rook brings a quick result. So pawn comes up the board, c4. e5. Rook to queen 3. Rook with an attack on h2. To this, there is no good reply. If he's saying if pawn here, so what he tries is G3. He's saying that if you tried pawn to H3, you can actually play king, go E4, rook to queen, pawn takes, and then the knight G5 with the threat of playing pawn knight takes, pawn check, or knight to bishop, knight to F3 check. So we let's see here. Where am I? Okay. Oops. Sorry, 31. Rotates pawn. And then bishop to knight, bishop g2. and knight comes in, and the idea is to bring the knight via there and basically mate. Or actually play here and potentially maybe mate, or maybe draw. Bishop B7 is interesting too. Rook takes E5, and knight to bishop check. Rook takes knight, and then bishop to B7, and white resigned when he's finding out that if bishop takes here, pawn takes, rook takes, rook check, king comes up, and then the rook comes here and it's mate. And if rook rook takes the pawn, then the pawn takes, bishop takes, let's see here, rook takes the pawn, pawn takes, rook, and bishop takes, rook check. If he takes there, then rook takes his mate. And that's one of the ideas. Okay, let's get on to some of our puzzles now. If you like, let's see, tools, board editor. Hey. Yeah, if you'd like play okay, you can always join we have a community, a team. So you could always join our team. Team Chess Cruncha. Alright, let's get on to our puzzles now. Thinking that this is I'm just missing a king and we're good to go. Oops, I'm missing a king for black. White to mate too. Yep, you got it. Well, let me see. Instead of king, well, the queen can't take. Yeah, the queen. The only move that is possible is king takes. That's it. It's a forcing mate in two. Gotta make sure. Okay, queen. Let me get black set up here. Sorry, I'm taking a little bit of time here. It just takes a second to. Okay, got that. All these pieces. After you get it all put in, then it'll be. Then you can actually go over it. Let me see if I got this right. Queen there, 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 there. Okay. White to move. So white to move and mate and two. So let's see if we can find the mate in two. So this here, and then you got mate. And then if you take with the other rook, you still have the same mate. Great work on that. Play okay. Nice job. Nice find on that. Let's set it up again. Let's roll it again. Rolling down the river. Do, 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 do. Let's roll this chessboard again. We got this. Yep. Here, here, and then pawn. And then white has a pawn. Let me see here. All good. Good, 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 good. Alright. Okay. White to mate 2. So let's see what we got here. This is interesting. Oh, that doesn't work. Make sure that I have all this right. Yep. Yeah. Pretty tough one. Sometimes they're tough. I was looking at bishop c2, king takes c2, and yeah. You got it. Nice work there. And so away we go to the next one. Can you solve this? Can you solve it? You could turn it into a rook too, and the same thing happens if you turn it into a rook. I always look for the alternate lines alongside with that, because you never know. What you might have. Clear the board, clear the deck. One more pawn. Let me see. There. Oops, I missed a bishop here. And last for white. This is white. We have to, because we gotta think. Positive thoughts. Let me see here. Ooh, this is a straightforward one. Yep. Kaboom. There we go. Clear the deck. It is your turn to move. What to play? What to play? To white. There you go. Another one. Another one is done. Nice job. You're making short work of those. I'm gonna make sure I have this right. Yep. Yeah. Oops, I just gotta bring a king, and it's all up to you now. Yep, because of this here, it works. This covers, this is covered, that's covered, and then we got a check. Alright. It's up to you now. What is the move? to do. Kaboom, there you go. A nice find there. Okay. White to move. Try that again. Yeah, there we go. There we go. Kaboom. That's right. There you go. White to move. Can you give both mates? Can you give us both mates? There's two mates here, two variations. Can you give us both of those? If you can play okay, that'd be great. What's the other one? There's one more. One more. Because you got, yeah, this right. And then you got that right. Oops, wrong one's right. This one here. But there's one more. What's the other one? Yeah, there we go. There we go. Nice job. Great work. That's the way we like it when we solve all of them. We take our brain cells, excuse me, to the limit. There we go. Okay, we have one more after this one. Mate in 2 for white. This one's a little tricky. I'll see if you can solve it. Oh, wow. You just ate through that like Swiss cheese. Nice. Nice. That was like that did not even take you a second. Wow. Nice. That was like, whoa. You must be doing tactics. Oh yeah, that too. If here and if yeah, if you don't take, then that comes in. Yep, there you go. You found both of them. Great job there. Great job. Yeah, if he doesn't take any move, if he plays any move but taking Queen G7 is mate. Great find on that. Great job. There, there. Yep. Alright. Last one, and then we start our endgame studies. Hey, you know what? Some people listen to the like Mozart, Beethoven, and those, and that helps with their learning. Queen takes. Knight takes. Rook. That's an Arabian mate. Well, if the king moves, then if the king moves, what are the two mates? If the king moves, what are the two mates? If queen takes c8, and if knight doesn't take, if queen takes c8, then king a8. So what's the move after there's two mates? What are the moves after king a7? Yep, you got it. Boom, there's mate. And boom, there's mate. Yep, great work. That's it. I'll be right back. I'll put it on so you can watch the blitz. Just 1 second. There we go. Let's get back. Let's get dangerous, as in Darkwing Duck would say. Let's get our end game on the wrap. We're gonna do it. We're gonna do great. Let's see here. Ooh, rook and 4. Sweet. Wow. This is a rook and 4. Ho ho ho. Let's read about a rook and 4. 4 versus 3. For a rook and 4 versus a rook and 3. In this endgame, the defender has the following fears. The stronger side will create a kind of big squeeze we've seen in our rook 3 and 2 examples. A transposition to a poor rook and 3 versus rook and 2, or a rook and 2 versus a rook and 1 will occur occasionally, he says. Unfortunately, being forewarned is being forearmed. It's clear that the defender most favorably exchanges pawns whenever possible, while also being careful to prevent the stronger side from swarming down the board, basically like linebackers just blitzing the line and going after your QB. This swarming should be stopped in 2 ways. Use your own pawns to stop the enemies. Use your rook to tie down the king to defend the defense of the pawns. Here's an example of what he's talking about right now. And I can actually click this because we have so many pawns. That is pretty stellar, actually. So if he doesn't really have any notations for this, but I'll show you on this board here. He's saying that if you, because I don't want to make this a study yet, because he'll have a study that he talked about. This right here, if it's black to move, and black would want to play h5. Black would want to play. Actually, hold on. Let me just set this up. We'll do black to move and white to move. We're not going to make it a study, but we'll set it up. See, black's idea would be h5 exclam. This neutralizes any of white's threats of pushing or getting anything going. Oops, I have to get a rook on the board. Sorry about that. Hold on. I knew I forgot something. Here, and then here, right here. Analyzing. Okay, this would stop any of white's hope and dreams of getting, because he can't go f5 because the rook pins the knight. So this is a plain old draw for black. But if it's white to move, white's going to do a sneaky idea of g4 exclam, with the idea of moving the king up to g3, thereby freeing up the ability to push these 2 pawns, and basically like a beehive that swarms. These pawns are like a swarm of bees that are coming down the board ready to make sure that whoever's going to mess with their hive goes away. So this is what they're talking about here. So let's black. If black manages to do h5 like what we said, he should have an easy draw. And if white plays g4, it's going to be hard, but it should be a win for white. So now he actually has one for. So he does have one for black. Sorry, I was wrong about that. He gave 2 examples, so there was one for black. and I'll make it a study. So he's saying that h4 or h5, exchange pawns. That's the black's idea. Exchange down to exchange these rooks off, exchange these pawns here, and then put your king in front, and then go for a draw is black's idea. Use the rook to tie the king down to the defense of its pawns. One possible continuation might be h3, rook b2 to hold on. The rook is happy to stay and pin the f2 pawn. Therefore, it keeps the king under wraps. g4. Excuse me. And what would you play here? What would you play here if you were black? With the knowledge that we have on board, what would you play here? You're black. Black to move. What would you play? I'll give you 1 minute to decide. Then I'll continue. Well, with your idea of exchange pawns, remember we want to exchange these pawns off. If we could, we want to exchange these pawns off for these pawns, and exchange this rook off for that rook, and then get our king there. So in this setup, what would be a good move for black? Give you one more try. Yep, there you go. As they say on, Peter Pan, hoorah, or they have their thing. We go, hoorah, yeah, nice job there. Great work. And trading a pair of pawns is definitely part of black's plan. Great find there. Now, you're black. Again, what would you play here? Because remember what we talked about, that white wants to swarm with his 3 versus 2. So what move would you play for black to stop his swarm of pawns coming up the board? What would you play here? Think of deep freeze. Think of deep freeze, Jeremy Silman. I think that's in chapter 2. Deep freeze. What would be the move for black if we want to set up a deep freeze? What are you thinking? We want to set up a deep freeze, so what would be a deep freeze? Were you here when we did the section on the pawns? I'll give you one more shot. That's not the move. I'll give you one more shot. You want to stop this from happening. So what move would you do to stop that? Because white wants to play. Yeah, but really, remember, your whole goal is to restrain and trade. So your idea is, yeah, G5, exclam. Nice job. That's actually a exclam move. So congratulations on finding that. That's a tough one to find. Telling white that any future advance of the f-pawn will lead to even more pawn exchanges. Play now enters the arena where we've already explored rook versus 3 and rook versus 2. And then eventually rook versus 2, rook versus 1, and even a Philidor's position gone bad situation, for example, could arise. So what'll happen is you exchange down, and if you get this type of knowledge on board, you can take a even 5 versus 4 pawn and take it to a 4 versus 3, 3 versus 2, 2 versus 1, and then a Philidor's position that's good, that would end up being a draw. That's why he's building up the pawns. He's showing us that we're learning as we go up the board, as we like to say. So rook c3. Oops, hold on. What am I? Hold on. What did? Uh-oh. Yikes. My bad. I have the rook on the wrong spot. Ouch. I am so sorry there. Hold on. I thought for sure I had the rook in the right spot. That's my fault there. It was on a different square. It must be a different example. I knew there was something I was missing here. Okay. I have to delete this. Well, the same moves happen. It's just it didn't work if delete. Hold on. Okay. Okay, H, that's his exclam. H3, he plays here. G4, pawn takes, and then G5, and now he plays rook C3. Black would meet king G3 with rook to B3 and continue to annoy white, and he wouldn't be able to play anything because if white tried pushing, the rook would take. So that, if you're wondering why he played rook to C3, was so that when king G3 happens, F3 is playable and the E pawn is protected at that point. So F6, king G3, king G6, because we're trying to then F4, G takes F4, E takes F4, As stated earlier, accepting split pawns by king takes doesn't give white any any hope of victory. Rook b1, preventing the advance of the f pawn because we can get in behind the king. It's a good idea to keep the rook as active as possible. This move creates a checking distance and sets up some checks on the first rank. Rook c7, rook g1, king h3, rook h1, king g1, or g2, sorry, and then rook a1. What is the move here that draws? There's one move that draws. One draws, I think just one draws. What's the drawing move here? Okay, I'm going to throw it into your court, my chess cruncher friends. What is the draw move for black? Black's in check right now. No, that's not the right one. But good try there. There's only one that's right. What's the other one? What shelters you from any checks you'll ever have, and you'll be winning here. Yep, there you go. This one seals the draw, and it's time to shake the hands and say good game. That was easy, but even if white manages to trick black into a worst case scenario, knowing the trusty Philidor's gone bad drawing formation should still save the day. Okay, this is going to be a good one here. Ooh, this is going to be a good one. Ooh, good. This should be good here. Wow. Oh man. Boy. You're black. What's the move? What's the move that draws here? This is a Philidor's position that's gone bad. What is the move here that draws? Think of our last session. What is the move, my friends? Hold on. What's the move? Give it your best. Give it your best shot at this point. You're black. Rook e8. Try it again. Try again. I'll give you one more opportunity to give it a shot here. It does involve a rook. I'll give you the hint. It does involve a rook, but it's not rook e8. It does involve a rook, and it's not a check. So it does involve a rook, and it's not a check, and it's not e8. re7. It's nothing along the e file, and it's not a check. Think restrict. Think restrict. You have to restrict this pawn here. The pawn on f5. You have to restrict the pawn on f5. Restrict the pawn on f5. So what move would restrict the pawn on f5? That's a rook move. Actually, that doesn't restrict the pawn. It's I'll give it to you. It's rook to f4 exclam. It goes along with stopping the pawn here. Surprisingly, Jeremy Silman did have this move. It's not the best move though. It actually is. It loses for black. King g8, king g6, rook c8, and then f6. And this is Jeremy Silman says an easy win. Unfortunately, if you've studied and learned the lessons in order to give, you'll be aware of the Philidorus position gone bad formation, and without hesitation toss your rook behind white's f pawn without any fear. He says, when you don't have an active rook, you'll understand the Philidorus position gone wrong or bad, and then you just toss it right there. Because if you did this, then you'd actually end up with a lost position. This isn't ideal since we're preferred the rook on f1 for a distance check. However, it turns out that this still allows black to draw via Philidorus position gone bad technique. King takes f6. The a8 check does nothing. King e7 and only helps black. And then if you go a7, sorry, not there, sorry, this delete that. What I mean is if a7, then this allows the rook to go to f1, and then we get to do our distance checks. And if rook takes, king g8, rook a6, and then we have rook g4 check, f king f, then we play rook f4, and we end up with the same position that we're actually wanting. So king g8 exclam, king g8 exclam. Going to the short side of the board, so in some lines black's rook can have a distance check on the side. Rook a8 check, king h7, and then king to e6. If rook a7, rook f1, rook e6, rook, oh sorry, hold on. If king e, then rook e, and then back and forth. And if we have the same type of setup here, if king g, if king g6, then you have check there, and the same type of setup happens. This is how you hold a Philidor's position gone bad. e6. If we tried rook f8, remember what we talked about? What do we do if he tries rook f8? There's one response here. Think distance check. Think long side. What would be a good move for black here? It involves a rook. So what would be a good move? Where would you want to place the rook for a exclam move? So think exclam. Yep. That's yeah, you can do b4, and that allows for distance checks to happen, I believe. Let me see. Let me make sure I'm doing this 100% right. Nope, I'm sorry, a4. I'm sorry, rook a, with this move here, rook a4 is the exclam. You were close though, you had the right idea. It just gives you more distance check. Then if rook e8, what do you play here? Because he doesn't have a rook on f8 anymore. Where do we put our rook again? This is an exclam. Where do we put our rook? Where do we place our rook? You're black. Where do you place your rook? Philidor's position gone bad. Think, where do you put the rook back? Yes, right on. There you go. And that's an exclam. Congratulations on finding the exclam. King to g7 is played. Got to remember this move is a vital move too, because this now stops black from being able to push this pawn up the board. So he can actually take now with the rook. And it also stops the rook from ever getting to f7. So white can't make any progress. We've seen that in a rook and 4 versus rook and 3 exchange pawn, is sometimes the defender loves to see that leaves the stronger side the only one other with one other idea. He needs to avoid trading and trades. He needs to avoid trades and try to gain some space by pushing his center pawns up the board. This is by far a more dangerous plan, and even though it is still a draw, it's worth avoiding by making use of the following defensive position. This is what we'll get to we'll get to this position, and then I'll get it set up, and then we'll read a little bit more about this. Okay, black threatens to make things difficult for white by playing e5. White can draw by rook b2. Or hold on, let me make sure I got this. White can draw by rook b6. Sorry, white can draw by rook b6. It's to keep the king at bay, but it doesn't complicate far beyond what our studies need to know at this stage of this endgame training. However, knowing that such positions are dangerous is important, and this knowledge should frighten the defender so much that he goes out of his way to avoid the advance to the e-pawn. Thus the move f4, and the result would be a defensive position which proves remarkably effective, and he can't make any progress. So if we could get this involved, white can get that involved. Here, f4 is I have to go into studies. This is the last one of the chapter. Then we enter bishop endgames, bishop and pawn versus lone bishop of the same color. That's gonna be fun. That's gonna be fun for sure, for sure. So he had played f4 exclam. The f-pawn stops black's e-pawn in its tracks, while the white rook ties black down to the protection of the f7 pawn. Since the g-pawn, even though he could attack it on a3, can be comfortably defended by king to f2, black is forced to go for it all, actually, with king to f6. Rook, you're kidding me, did I? No. Oh, rook c7 here. This is so that if he tries to go in for it, we can win this pawn. King f5. Otherwise, white would continue to shuffle his rook back and forth along the 7th. So rook takes, boom. King g. Rook f6, king takes g, rook takes check, king takes, rook takes e, rook g3, rook e3 check, with a hopeless drawn position. Okay, do you have any questions before I log? Are any games you want to go over? Or a game you played and you want to go over? Did you get a lot out of the rook and 4 versus rook and 3? Okay, we'll take a look at it before I log, because we'll end on a game. Come on, load up for me. Oh, chess 24. Okay, so you're black and your opponent's white. E6, pawn b3, knight f6, bishop b2, d5, e3. Wow. That's not good. C3, C5. Sorry about that. It's not good. Okay, so you're doing a. He did an English, but it's like a French. Alright, C6. Bishop E2. Bishop E7. Castles. Castles. So D45, knight E3. C takes. So taking here, take there. Queen takes. Queen takes. Pawn takes. Knight. Knight takes, knight takes, and then you can actually play, and if he tries pushing on, you can actually trade off via there and then play rook here and pick up a piece. And if here, then boom. So he'd have to actually retreat back, yeah. He'd retreat back there, and if bishop takes, rook comes over, and I'm thinking you're still alright with an attack, but bishop takes is an interesting line, and after takes, then your opponent could take, and if knight takes, you can actually play bishop C and maybe knight, queen here, knight there, and try to get some trade-offs. Knight, so he actually played here, he played there, knight takes, pawn takes, yeah, because you're picking up your piece, your pawn back. Knight. So I fractured your pawns. You have the two bishops. Now, see, he is down a light squared bishop. So what you need to do is play on all of his light squares. You're going to want to play on his light squares. That's good. You can actually potentially play G5 here, and then if he plays, let's say, Queen D, you always have the potential idea of Queen F. And then if he brings the rook over, you have Bishop F5, and he can't win anything. He could try there, and at this point you can attack there. And then you actually have queen moving in. And if he takes here, you can actually pick up a rook. And if there takes, bishop takes, you'd have to move your queen and you lose a rook, so he has to move. And you pick a rook up. You have a lot of play with your bishops. takes. See what happened when you played bishop to b7 was you actually you made your pawn passive, or your bishop passive, and this is your bishop that you need to keep active. You have to keep this bishop active because this is the reason that you traded your knight off and fractured your pawn structure, was to keep your little beauty, the light squared bishop, active. And you just have to play active, because if you put your bishop on a kind of non-attacking square of b7, it's lost its action in the game at this moment. You need to keep it active as possible. Rook fe takes. Rook e. Nice. I would actually have tried playing bishop, but I think I would have tried playing bishop e e, and then trying to go after these pawns here. So if you take here, pawn takes. I'm thinking you're better here. Thinking black's better. Or is it equal? It's equal, okay. Actually, I'm thinking g5 would have been winning for you here. I'm thinking you're winning at this point. You're actually winning here. Yeah, computer eye would show a draw, but I'm actually thinking you're winning. And if he tries something like this to get in, or he tries king here, you always, I guess he could take there. And then shut down, and maybe this is actually worse for black. So yeah, you're kind of up a creek without a paddle here. If he plays there, you enter, so he can't do that. He'd have to play in here and then wait for you to take, and after you take, the king comes in. Or something like that. Knight I'm thinking e5 and then takes, and then king g, and then maybe something like this, and then you can try to, you could stop this here. I think this is probably more to what your opponent would play. Let's see, how do we get here? Let's see, there, actually here. I think this is winning for black. I don't think white can get there in time. Yeah. I think it's still a draw, though. I think you can actually potentially hold. It'd be hard. This would be really hard for white to hold, since you have an outside passed pawn. You got a bishop. So I prefer black here. So do you have any questions on the game before I log off? On any part of the game? Okay. Then I will say adieu. That was a great, well played game. Great. You know what? We have to remember that, like Bruce Lee said, knowing is not enough, you must apply. Willing is not enough, you must do. And there are no limits to the human potential, my friends, but there are plateaus, and you must go beyond the plateau at hand. What you have to, what Bruce Lee said too, was he didn't fear the person who had a lot of different kicks, but he feared the person who practiced one kick 10,000 times. And that goes with a lot of situations that we're put with. We need to know our end games are rook and two, and Philidor's position gone bad. We got to know our position of 3 versus 2, 4 versus 3, and those. And if we can get those mastered, and that's what we're doing right now, we'll be able to improve in our endgame studies. I also like Yasser Serouan's phrase that he says, every long journey begins with one small step. So that's a really good one. And then we have one that don't give up, knuckle down, and get back up. Then we have one also that says, don't forget to bring your Grandmaster calculating glasses. And we become what we think about. And like on Mission Critical, treasure your victories and learn from your losses, and remember that mistakes do not define you. It's how you handle the mistake that defines you as a chess player and as a person in general. We need to stay focused that the Lord's the center of our what we should be striving to honor always. We got to keep our weeds guarded we have a garden which is called our time and everything, and you need to keep that garden cleaned. Keep those weeds out of the garden. Like, you can't spend a second twice, so you can only spend it once. And where are you going to put that second? Are you going to put that second in something that will help push that area that you're studying in, or will you do something else that doesn't? And that's kind of like the Valley of Decision, or Middle Earth in Lord of the Rings is a good example of that as well. They had to decide in Middle Earth, who will you serve that day? And you know what? I know that we're doing good, because you know what? By studying and keeping your eyes focused on the prize, which could be a rating, an IM, an FM, IM, GM, whatever it is, it's so worth it to keep pushing forward for that rating or that title. Because then what you can do is give back to the chess community then, and help out the chess community when you get a title. It is worth it to get it, trust me. And you know what? We have to always remember, when we're studying and most aren't, and they come over and ask what you're doing, I'm a chess cruncher. What's a chess cruncher? A chess cruncher hangs up their coat, hangs up their hat. They sit down and study when most won't. A chess cruncher does. And that makes all the difference. And we always need to remember, I know I say remember a lot, but it's this, that the Lord is the center of all of Chess Cruncher. The Chess Cruncher team. He's the center of it all. And I'll leave you with that. And as Wesley So says, for the Lord Jesus, as I say, God bless, and I'll see you next time on Chess Cruncher TV. Have a blessed morning, afternoon, evening, and Lord willing, I'll be back on tomorrow. And we'll keep pushing forward and studying from Frank J. Marshall's Best Games of Chess, and we'll do some of Father Pogar's puzzles, and we'll do Jeremy Silman's Endgame, and keep improving bishops, a bishop of one pawn, the same colored bishops. So we're going to get to see how to win that one, and that'll be fun. Okay, great job, Team Chess Crushers. 2 thumbs up. Hoorah, be blessed, and always keep studying chess and having a good time. Bye-bye. And always honor the Lord as well. Bye-bye.